The Mandalorian to explore darker, freakier side of Star Wars, according to showrunner. Yeah, man, let's get freaky.
Headbanger.
Shake that Mandalorian ass.
Give me some new. Give me some new.
How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. So look, as D23 approaches, we're going to be getting more and more information, and we'll be getting what I can only assume would be a full-on trailer of the upcoming show, The Mandalorian. Then showrunner Jon Favreau has been making the rounds, discussing some of the elements of his show and what he intends to do with this project that he is working on and bring it to the new streaming service Disney Plus. So let's get into this article, because I think I saw something come across the wire that there's actually a trailer out right now. So if that's the case, then I want to jump on that and possibly do a reaction video. So I'm over here on digitalspy.com, and the author of this article is Charlie Ross. Let's rock and roll. Forget the Dark Side. An upcoming TV show set in the Star Wars universe is set to show the freakier Mad Max aspect of the sci-fi world, according to its creator, Jon Favreau, that is. I'm all in on that. If we're going to have something that feels like a post-apocalyptic Star Wars setting, something reminiscent of Mad Max, yeah, give that to me, please, please. The Lion King director Favreau told The Hollywood Reporter that the upcoming show will share DNA with the original trilogy when it comes to things like spaceship size and aspects of the lead character's characteristics. Exciting. Yes, and this is the one thing that I've been saying, is that I just get the feeling that John's looking to have this come across as a very authentic Star Wars experience. This show, he wants it to sit proudly next to that original trilogy, and I think he's taken a lot of inspiration from that, and that can only be a good thing. I'm trying to evoke the aesthetics there we go. I'm trying to evoke the aesthetics of not just the original trilogy, and not just the first film, but the first act of the first film, and that is, a lot of people talk about how Star Wars felt like a lived-in universe. And when we originally are introduced to Star Wars and we meet Luke on Tatooine, and we see all of this equipment, this futuristic equipment, but it's very used. It's been beaten up by the elements. It's stuff that's maybe been repurposed. We see the Jawas making their way across Tatooine in their sandcrawler and their scavengers, and they're taking all of these robots and droids and whatever they could find along the way, and they're selling it off to farmers there on Tatooine, moisture farmers. And of course, that's how we end up with R2-D2 and C-3PO falling into the hands of Luke Skywalker. But that whole lived-in, used universe, it was very interesting, because up until that point, for a lot of sci-fi, it was a very sleek, futuristic idea of advanced space age technology. And part of the brilliance of that original trilogy, and what George Lucas did, was he said, no, people are using this stuff is getting beat up, it's traveling through space, it's dealing with the elements of other planets and what their habitat is and their environment, and different climates, and just wear and tear in general. I mean, what happens to a brand new car 20 years down the line? It gets beat up, it falls prey to the change in seasons and fender benders and people running shopping carts into it. You know, this is the kind of things that happen, and the original trilogy gave us that. It gave us another relatable aspect, even though these were fantastic designs and vehicles that were realized on film like we had never seen before. The space vehicles, you know, the Millennium Falcon and the TIE Fighters and even the Star Destroyers, all of these vehicles, really not so much the Imperial vehicles, but the stuff with the rebels, you know, the X-Wings Luke's land speeder, all of these vehicles, they looked like they were used or being repurposed for other reasons. Like they had a life before they fell into the current owner's hands. And that's relatable. That grounds that movie in a sense. Even though it's so fantastical, you feel like there's something tangible about it. And that's a great quality. I think that was actually something that was a little bit lacking in the prequels. Things felt a little bit too clean, a little too sleek. I prefer my Star Wars to be a little more gritty and grimy and feel organic and tangible and somewhere that I could actually possibly visit or comes across as having an actual sense of weight and heft and age and being used. I think that's something that people always associated with the original trilogy, and Jon has zeroed in on that. And if he's going to take that type of aspect, that type of visual aesthetic, and he's going to apply it to a Mad Max type of world where he's telling the story that he wants to tell, then man, sign me up for that. I mean, Mad Max, I always loved the Road Warrior and how they took those vehicles, those cars in a post-apocalyptic world and repurposed them and did all kinds of crazy things to them and welded all different types of panels and protective plating and metal and made these just absurd types of vehicles. You're turning regular cars into these battle vehicles. So that is very cool to me. What was it like on Tatooine? What was going on in that cantina? That has fascinated me since I was a child. And I love the idea of the darker, freakier side of Star Wars, the Mad Max aspect of Star Wars. Sounds super badass, right? Yeah, I would say so. The Mandalorian's first season, set 5 years after the events of The Return of the Jedi, is due to premiere on Disney streaming service, Disney Plus, later this year. Favreau having already started work on a second season. He's already working on the second season. This guy's a horse. When asked about his decision not to direct the show, despite the fact that he's directed big titles such as Iron Man 2, and Elf, Favreau insisted that being an executive producer and writer gave him time to create a Star Wars story that worked for him. Again, and that's one of the things that he has said when he worked on the original idea for The Mandalorian, approached Disney in with 4 episodes already written out in hand. He wanted to do the story that he wanted to do, and that was important to him. So while a lot of people thought that this was something that was conceived by Disney and then we were all going to get duped and The Mandalorian was actually going to be the Mandalorian, which is something I actually never really fell into. I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. I was taking a wait and see approach on that, but this has been Jon's baby from the very beginning. So it's nice to know that he's the one steering the ship, and even though I'm sure he's got certain parameters that he has to work inside of, with it being Disney, it's his vision that's coming across and nobody else's. So we're not getting any kind of weirdo politics or agendas or Kathleen Kennedy pushing whatever she's trying to push across, at least as far as we know right now. Fingers crossed this doesn't end up being a complete disaster, because it's looking very, very promising. The type of Star Wars story that I'm inspired to tell is a smaller thing with new characters, he said. And you know what? The Empire Strikes Back, again, it's one of the smaller stories in the saga, and it works really well. There's no Death Star, right? There's no Death Star tech. There's no big, huge device that the rebels have to overcome. That second movie, The Empire Strikes Back, it's just a good movie. It's good storytelling, and all of the characters in there, they probably, the characters, the actors, I would say in that original trilogy, probably, at least for me, I find all of the characters to be the most interesting in The Empire Strikes Back, and I find for the most part that all of the actors to give their best performance in that movie. So it's a standout movie that takes the original A New Hope to the next level, raises the stakes, is widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars movies ever, and doesn't go absolutely bonkers with over-the-top insanity. Of course, the Battle of Hoth is fantastic. It's a great action set piece. The AT-ATs, love them. The Millennium Falcon trying to get away from the Empire. They have that fantastic chase sequence going into the asteroid field. There is fantastic action in The Empire Strikes Back, but it's very much character driven, and it's a little bit more of a deeper, darker, compelling movie that the good guys actually lose, ends on a cliffhanger, and it still manages to be a satisfying experience. So if we're going to get something a little bit more along the lines of that with this show that Favreau is producing, then I'm very much looking forward to seeing what we actually end up with. The Mandalorian takes place after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. Well, thank God for that. And follows a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. The Mandalorian will drop on November 12th. So there it is. There's the official date, November 12th, the day Disney Plus launches. Fantastic. And what they said is the whole entire thing will not be available to stream right away. So Disney wants to get you to sign up and then hook you in, and then you'll have to sit around waiting for the whole entire series to be released week after week. Disney's going old school because they want those subscription dollars. I mean, they're a business. They have every right to try to make as much money as they can, but Disney doesn't pass up a lot of opportunities to squeeze an extra buck out of their fans or their audience or their customers. So, well, that's all I got on this article. Let me know what you think about this. Are you looking forward to getting a little darker and a little freakier and taking this series and getting gritty, kind of taking it back to the original roots, the original aesthetic? If this is something that I've been saying that I felt Favreau wanted to do, and here he confirms that, you know, he's not trying to just evoke the aesthetics of the original trilogy of the first film, but the first act of the first film. So, you know, I've been saying for a while he wants this to kind of sit next to the original trilogy, to feel like it fits in, and he essentially confirms that here. So I'm very, very interested and hopeful that this ends up being a really good Star Wars experience. And when it's all said and done, at the end of this, it's going to be Disney Star Wars and it's going to be Favreau's Star Wars. And so far, it looks like Favreau's Star Wars is where it's at. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please comment down below, like the video. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I will talk to you guys sometime soon. Until that time, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.